welcome back to Rotisserie Chicken. I'm Anna Leckie.
And I'm Jacob Worthington.
And today we're going to bring you a Reddit Takes episode on, can you guess it? Have you had some kind of omen or intuition about what we're going to cover today?
No.
We are covering Premonitions.
I knew that.
Today, the Premonitions.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever had a Premonition? Have you ever joinked your Premonition?
I don't think I've ever joined my permanent. I mean, we talked about it on previous episodes. I've had deja vu that were borderline premonitions.
Yeah, that we determined was neurological damage.
And then I have a lot of gut feelings that end up being kind of correct, but I just feel like that's just...
That's human intuition.
Yeah.
I can get behind it.
I don't think that's a premonition. Now, my mom's had, like, tons of premonitions.
So is mine. I've had a couple, but I know my moms have this thing. A lot of moms have this thing where they just have that sense of what's happening with their children. It's interesting.
Well, you know that they said that I saw this thing recently that talked about how you exchange cells and atoms like with your mother, and so you kind of like part of you is her and part of her is you.
Yeah, I mean, she literally built you.
So maybe you have like quantum entanglement. You have quantum entanglement with your mother.
I think so. I think I have quantum entanglement with both parents. You know, that's how I feel.
Nah.
You don't think so?
Nah. Nah. My dad's never been like, "Hey, I was thinking about you." And he's like, was right. You know, usually my dad, whenever he said stuff about me to me, I was like, "You're wildly wrong."
Okay. Fair enough, to each his own. Well, I wanted to cover this and explore this because I am really interested in this. And if you've been tuning in and if you've followed our episodes, you know that I like to cover otherworldly, out of the normal, supernatural kind of occurrences. And the big reason for this is that I like to believe that there is more out there than just our present reality that's right in front of our faces. I like to believe in a grander, bigger world where things beyond our perception are possible. And it really fascinates me when people have stories that are unexplainable or super mysterious that are just kind of bonkers. And it gives me the heebie-jeebies, but it also gives me this profound gratitude for being alive. And I've just always been really interested in it.
I mean, they don't call it supernatural for nothing.
Exactly. Supranatural. Would supranatural be the penultimate natural?
I don't know. I think supra just means like kind of like above. So there may be a supranatural that ghosts and things like that are like, bro, you don't even want to know about that next stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Your head's kind of cut off.
I know. We need to raise it up a little. How about that?
Yeah, that's better. So I took a bunch of things from Reddit and kind of aggregated some stories. So I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah, tell me. Teach me your ways.
All right. And I'm going to give credit where credit's due for these accounts. But some accounts have since been deleted or altered. So
I like you're going to give credit to counts, but they're going to be like Silly Billy Cat Person 49.
It's going to be Astral 357. So this account was deleted. When I was around 8 or 9, I had a friend who came over to spend the night at my house, and me and hers quite frequently. One weekend I spent the night at her house Friday night, and she spent the night at mine Saturday after her square dancing class. Dang, fire. The whole time at her house, I had a feeling that something wasn't right, but I didn't know what, and there wasn't anything out of the ordinary that happened or was out there. It was late at night, and her father called. She immediately burst out in tears after several seconds of talking to him. I sat on my bed and waited on her to be finished. She was hysterical and couldn't really say anything. I calmly looked at her and asked if her house had burned down. She paused and looked at me in horror and said, "Yes." I have absolutely no idea how I could have known that. This was in the late 90s, and all anyone had was home phones. I couldn't hear anything on the other end. I couldn't hear anything on the other end of the phone.
Anna's not laughing at someone's house horrifically being burned down. Our cat is scrolled up and he has joined the pod.
Hi, Fee.
Frito the burrito.
Hi, Fee.
Rotisserie Frito.
Mm.
Here. He can hang out if he wants.
As long as he doesn't do exactly that and hit the mic with his body.
I calmly looked at her and asked her if her house had burned down, and she was shocked. I have absolutely no idea how I could have known that. This was in the late 90s, and all anyone had was home phones. I couldn't hear anything on the other end of the phone, and she didn't say anything while on the phone that would give it away. We later found out the fire was due to an electrical issue.
Mm.
So those brief moments of unexplainable intuition, I've had countless in my life. There's this phenomena that happens all the time where someone pops into my head randomly and they start calling, like my phone starts ringing and it's their name. That happens to me all the time. Someone pops in, I get a text message from them. That just happens all the time.
Well, the counter argument that people always talk about is that how many times do you think about people and they don't call you? You just only kind of remember the times that they did. Because I think about people throughout the day, 20, 30 people a day, none of them call me.
Well, it's a different feeling. It's a different feeling that I have. It's not kind of like them popping in my head. It's interesting. So I think about my best friend, and I'll text her, and we're having a conversation, and then she might not respond till hours later. But the moment she responds, I might be doing something in the house, and then my brain goes immediately into that conversation we were having. I think about that conversation again. I look, and she had just responded to it. So it's like this energetic signal, and that happens to me all the time. I've known that my mom got into a car accident before. Whenever she got into a car accident, where she came home, was like, "Guess what happened to me today?" And I go, "You got into a car accident?" She was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." And that's happened to me several times of people being like, "Guess what happened to me?" And I'm like, "You hit a squirrel on your way here." And they're like, "Yeah."
A lot of vehicular premonitions. A lot of driving oriented. Anna's psychic, but it only involves people behind the wheel of a car.
I can tap into the Wi-Fi that goes into the GPS on a car's internal system. But I don't know. I have that internal knowing, and I've had a lot of really weird dreams, prophetic dreams. My mom's had a lot. So it's just, this stuff is very ingrained in me of kind of believing in this stuff. And it's just otherworldly.
Yeah.
You know? All right, here's another one from Opeliger.
Opeliger. Let me see that name. I don't know how to say that, but it looks like Opeliger.
This wasn't me, but my cousin. For my sister's graduation, our whole mom's side of the family were visiting from several states away. We were staying at a cabin, and the second to last night, my cousin had a nightmare that everything was on fire. Big fire theme. She was about 10 and had never had nightmares, so this was uncharacteristic for her. The next night, my grandmother was in a tizzy about possibly missing her flight the next day. We were in a very small area. Missing a flight was not really a risk. But my cousin joined the fuss, and it turned into such a hullabaloo that the whole family ended up leaving at 9 p.m. to head back into town that night instead of the next morning. So that night, at 1 a.m., lightning struck the propane tank along the outside of the cabin and created a massive explosion. The cabin was obliterated in seconds and burned for hours. The small town fire department, made up entirely of volunteers, didn't manage to put out the fire until about 8 a.m. That was when we originally planned to leave. If we had left in the morning like we had planned, every single one of us would be dead.
Dang, that's heavy.
Yeah, and I did try to keep a mind on not having all of these be really dark and death related, so there's a couple of good ones. But
well, I think that's like I think if supernatural stuff is going to cut through whatever keeps us disconnected, I think it's going to be the heavier things. You know, I don't know if like Premonition is going to be like, you're going to forget your keys tomorrow. It's usually like, you're going to die if you don't listen to what we're saying.
Are you superstitious in the sense that if I came to you and I was like, I had a dream that everything was on fire and like I feel weird about it, would you listen to me, or would you be like, oh, that's Anna being crazy again, classic?
Oh, Anna being crazy 100%. But we would.
He loves to gaslight
But
me.
you're so headstrong and stubborn. We would definitely go rent a hotel. There's like no world you wouldn't let me listen to it, but I would definitely be like, nah.
Would you let me take the boys?
Yeah, of course. What are we gonna leave the boys here while we go stay in a hotel because the house is gonna burn down? That's crazy.
I mean, their cat food's getting expensive these days. You know? I'm kidding. All right, this one's from Pico Rascar. He's a top 1% commenter. Shout out to you, buddy. He goes, my house. When I was young, I had clear visions of a home on a hill overlooking the ocean with a large patio, giant pine trees in the yard. I live in that house now, and it matches the vision just exactly. Even the trees are where I imagined them, and I always thought that was really weird.
I wonder if that could be manifestation versus premonition too.
Sure.
You know?
Sure, and I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to say. I could see those worlds blending or those concepts blending.
Yeah.
But that one was a really positive one because I feel like I've had dreams about going places, especially on vacation or visiting certain areas, and then going and being like, oh, this is exactly how it looked in my dream, or this is how the building was, or I've been here before. I guess it is kind of that hybrid deja vu feeling. But I don't know. I just like this idea because you and I have a very clear vision of what we kind of want our future home to be.
Do you think the difference between deja vu and premonition is like that weird suspended dream state? Because like premonition is so much more like concrete and externalized, and then deja vu is like you're almost like half walking through the premonition at the same time that you're having it.
Yeah. I don't know. I know my mom's had some very, very specific deja vu. Or not deja vu, sorry. Premonitions. You fucking me up, Ricky.
I'm just saying that it seems like there's a thin line between the two.
Well, she's had very specific premonitions, and it was while she was awake. It wasn't, I mean, some were dreams. But one she described was kind of in a half state of hearing kind of this external voice warn of impending doom.
My mom has had multiple, like, I need to call this child while we were in extreme trouble.
Yeah.
Like at the exact same time.
My mom's had that too. Moms be getting that, you know?
Maybe it's something we developed evolutionarily to keep us alive. Is that mothers were able to they were like, humans were so soft and squishy and we die really easy. We're not like compared to the rest of the world, strong or fast or, built for the elements.
Yeah, I mean, we're not built like orca whales.
I mean, what are we talking about? 100 people versus one gorilla? Most people are taking the gorilla on this one, So we're not designed for like survival of the fittest. But our intellect and maybe some of these like supranatural or what's the word? ESP, extrasensory perception. Mm-hmm. Maybe some of this ESP activity is like what's the word I'm looking for? Adaption that helped us survive, and it's mainly been given to mommies because they're the ones keeping these little piglets safe and protected.
Yeah, but it's not a strictly human phenomenon, though.
You think?
A lot of animals have...
Premonition? How are you going to judge that?
Well, if you let me finish, I'll friggin' explain it.
I'm just wondering...
You see what I'm friggin' dealing with?
No, I'm just wondering how you're going to tell a monkey or a parrot.
It's a really common thing that certain animals, like horses or cows, can predict weather, impending weather. And that's how some civilizations used to use I mean, the animals are basically the meteorologists. Is where if you have a horde of horses all of a sudden go on high ground, seek shelter, they're all moving, but everything seems fine. They go, oh, there's a storm coming in. The horses just know that they have this sense. I would call it extrasensory because it's not currently happening, but it might be a shift in pressure or a shift in moisture in the air that they can sense that they know a storm is coming. Also, there have been countless stories of animals, dogs, cats that have kind of started acting weird about something before it happened. So I think animals very much so have extrasensory. I think that level of intuition is not strictly human. If anything, I think that humans might be more shut off from that than other animals.
Touche.
All right. So you get what you ask for. All right. All right. This one's from Corvid Lover 13. Shout out. My premonition played the long game. When I graduated from high school, my brother flew across the country with my baby niece to be there. When he lived at home, we didn't get along very well. He blamed me for our parents' divorce, didn't really like me, and seemed to enjoy beating the shit out of me. Lame. Fatherhood changed him, and the 2 weeks he and my niece visited were the first time we ever connected. Deep talks, good family time with our mom, stepdad, and stepsister. I had hoped that we were entering a new phase in our relationship. My mom and I were going to drive them to the airport, which was 90 minutes away, but on our way out of town, I had a massive panic attack. My mom ended up dropping me at my aunt's, and when I hugged my brother goodbye, I was struggling to control my crying. As they drove off, I told my aunt that I couldn't shake the feeling that I would never see him again. In the months that followed, I went off to college, and my brother and I had phone conversations where he seemed to really want to repair our relationship. Life was good. Then during spring break, I stayed in the dorm so I could work that week. I was walking through a parking lot on my way to the grocery store, and out of nowhere, the wind started blowing, and I started having the first panic attack I've had in almost a year. I started crying, desperately trying to remember the last time I'd hugged my brother, ending up holding that moment by the car in my head as I closed my eyes and waited for the worst of the panic to pass. It did. I tried to laugh at myself and eventually kept walking towards the store. Not far from the store, there was this mentally ill guy who stood on the corner ranting and raving about something called sympathetic nerve gas. He was harmless, just loud, and folks mostly ignored him. That day, out of nowhere, he pointed at me and shouted, "That girl is not going to be happy after tonight." I was startled, and he never seemed to engage with people, and I had no idea why he singled me out. That night, at 1:14 a.m., I woke to pounding on my dorm room door, and it was my parents and stepsister. They had driven 5 hours to tell me that my brother had died on the other side of the country. That moment after my graduation really was the last time I saw him alive.
Dang.
Isn't that creepy?
I do hear a lot of those stories, though. A lot of the, like, I felt like this was the last time I was going to see this person, and then it was.
Yeah, I think we do have that knowing. And it's weird. The homeless person thing scares me. Mm-hmm. That really freaks me out.
I think a lot of homeless people might actually be, we've talked about this before, about like schizophrenia maybe possibly being a connection to like another type of like a spiritual connection that we don't really understand, and those people don't get the opportunities to explore that in our civilization, and I think they often do end up homeless.
Yeah, or it's not, there's theories about that, about maybe being stuck on different planes of reality. Moving through the streets of Atlanta, I'm going to try to dodge the premonitions from here on out.
I'm just going to start asking homeless people for the lottery ticket numbers.
Well, if they told you it right, would you share it with them?
Yeah, of course. What kind of monster would I be to use the psychic powers of a homeless person and then not share in the splendors, the spoils?
This one's from Lucky Girl 54. In a dream, I got out of bed and went to the chair where my boyfriend's pants were hanging. I pulled out his wallet and there was a slip of paper with a phone number with the letter J on it. I found out weeks later he was cheating on me with a girl named Joanne. How's that? That's it. I have one of my best friends would have a dream just like that. Her intuition is amazing, and anytime a trifling man has trifled on her, She's literally figured it out before it happened.
I also never met a Joanne I've liked. You know what I mean? Joanne Fabrics going out of business. Going out of business because she couldn't keep it together.
Yeah.
She's out there cheating with all these people's mans.
But I thought that was really interesting. Have you ever had something like that in a relationship? Like where you've kind of reminisced something happening?
Yeah. Yeah. You won't like it, but
I won't like it.
sometimes when I talk about exes, Anna gets this look on her face where she's like, No, I'm like, baby, this is a decade ago.
I don't care.
A decade ago. Well, I
don't care none.
I was let's say for the sake of the example, I was camping and I was sleeping in a tent and I woke up out of nowhere and I like heard my girlfriend at the time like yell my name. And I was like, that's weird. And so then I went to sleep and then like an hour later they showed up at the campsite and was like they said they like felt me like freak out or something and then came and checked on me.
That's weird.
I know.
That's super weird.
That was weird.
Were you freaking out?
I was freaking out that I woke up to someone screaming my name that wasn't there.
That, you know what, and that's what I was saying about the text messages or the calls. Mm-hmm. It's almost like when they thought of you and they were having that conversation, it's kind of like that old adage that your ears start ringing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when because that happens so much with me for the calls and the text kinds of things, or I'll call my mom and she's like, I was just picking up the phone to call you or something like that, where if somebody pops into my head like that in a really strong sense, I go, I bet they're thinking about me right now. I literally go, I bet they are. I got you. You know?
Do you think if I go to the VA for like my hearing because I have constant ringing, do you think they're like, nah, dude, that's just a bunch of people thinking about you? Like, nah, you just the talk of the town. You don't even have to worry about that.
Oh man, maybe. Who's thinking about you though?
I don't know.
Who's she? This one's deleted. RIP. Between 2012 and 2013, I had a sort of inexplicable obsession with death. I started reading everything related to it, from the perspective of philosophy, psychoanalysis, mythology, but at the same time, I always tried to approach it from a rationalist point of view. I come from an atheist family and was raised as to not hold spiritual beliefs about death, spirits, or anything like that. In the second half of 2013, I started to have these visions. Things I'd see while awake, like involuntary flashes. The content was always death-related, and I thought one of my parents would die soon. I just kept telling myself it was my imagination, and that I should not give these images much attention, but they came with a heavy emotional content, and I would often cry, despite not being much of an emotional person. In 2014, my mom committed suicide.
Damn.
I will not go into the details about that. I think everyone reading can imagine the impact of such a situation. Apart from pain and grief, this was the beginning of my spiritual search, journey, or whatever you want to call it. I just couldn't accept that I had these visions of something I simply couldn't see coming. So I've been searching many ways since then. And I started realizing how I do have a strong intuition. Things I know without knowing how. Sensations I cannot verbally explain. Visions of the future. I'm never sure whether they are simply my imagination or if they're some kind of premonition. Third eye or whatever you want to call it. Many years later, I suddenly had these feelings I had before my mother's passing. It was like sensing the presence of death. And this was driving me crazy. I became paranoid, almost delusional, worrying about everything, trying to figure out if someone I care about was going to die. That was when I came back to psychotherapy, which was helping me a lot since then. So I was slowly getting calmer. But a little time after I felt this death presence, I suddenly received the news that a friend of mine had just died because of cancer. Can you imagine that? I spent a lot of time trying to understand all this until I went to a spiritual center where I was told what I feared to be true, but couldn't admit to myself. I'm a medium. When I heard that, I was like, what the fuck? I don't even believe this. But this opened like a channel within me, and I began to receive entities and beings from the spiritual world. And this led me to a more steady connection to spirituality and religion. What do you... What are you
No,
smirking?
nothing. Keep reading.
And for some months, I was always thinking, I really, really, really hope I'm not getting psychotic or something like that, which would totally be my thought. But my therapist said to me, if you're questioning these events, if you doubt them, you're probably not a psychotic person. I do not think, though, these things lack a rational explanation. Jung himself had said once that intuitive function lives these sorts of experiences. It's a phenomenon that's been happening since the beginning of humankind. But after living all of that so deeply, I realize how the rational does not conflict with the intuitional. I don't know if that's a word. But. Nowadays, I think I gave up on trying to explain or find rational arguments. I just take the inexplicable events as they come. In all their absence of form, explanations come later. I realize I do not have to believe anything extraordinary or supernatural. There's no need to force my intellect into believing the unbelievable. I just know what I see, and I know the things that I lived. As Wittgenstein once said, fire name, the world is everything that is the case. Okay. Do you also have some experience you'd like to share about premonition intuition? What's your opinions on these sorts of things? How do you differentiate intuitive perceptions from plain imagination? So honestly, that's a really good question. How do you...
I'm like kind of skeptic. I'm definitely more of a skeptic with this stuff than you are, I feel like.
Well, yeah, that's great. Tell me why. We need that material.
Because
that's
this lady's story is
get
like...
us clicks.
I felt like death was something bad and was around, and then a friend of mine died from cancer.
I was kind of thinking about how people just die all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody dies all the time. It's gonna happen.
And it was just really vague.
I was
it's just like a really vague, you know, the I don't know. I just feel like we're connection creating people. That's what we do. That's what humans are so good at, is making connections. And sometimes we do it when there's no real connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
So, but it also could be ways of our subconscious figuring things out and speaking to us, like the dream where it was like a J. Maybe she had already put together that he was like cheating and somehow heard him say her name or something like that.
Maybe.
And then her subconscious brain was like bringing it, trying to message her about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I will. I might throw in my mom's premonition at the end of this because that was really strange.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I believe that humans are psychic. I don't think most people who say they're psychic or had psychic stuff are true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we have that within us. I do think that's something that we were built for, and maybe we were better at it back in the day. But I think 99% of the time people are like, I had like a psychic moment. It's more just like coincidence or you connecting a dot after the fact.
Yeah, and I do agree with you largely on that. I think it is really easy to kind of make those connections, but I think due to my own experiences with my experiences with premonitions, which I'll talk a little bit about at the end of the episode. I believe that these things can happen and are true.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Okay. This one's from River Sky 55. So far, the posts have been either dismissive or really, really full of New Age jargon. So here's my experience. I had my first death dream when I was about 13 or 14. I was seeing through the eyes of a woman who, during the dream, was killed in a tornado under very specific circumstances. So for those who have been told that if you die in a dream, you really die, no. That dream has stayed with me all of my life, as has my empathy for that woman. I later read about the incident in a Reader's Digest of all places and did some research to find out who she was. Not going into details because I'm not here to prove anything to anyone, just to share. After that, they began happening at least a couple times a year. Plane crashes, murders, car wrecks, workplace shootings, even the tsunami in Indonesia several years ago.
Dude, talk about PTSD. If you're just dreaming of actually being murdered.
I saw parts of all of them. I've never seen enough to help anyone, and for a long time I was distressed that I was seeing these things without being able to save the people I saw die. The dreams would affect me for days as if I'd been there in person to witness the death. It's hard, and I feel for your daughter. What I eventually was told is that because I'm very empathetic and try to help people in real life, sometimes spirits just want to tell their stories. Being able to show someone what happened to help them get closure so they can move on. I can't vouch that this is the truth, but it does feel right to me, and even though I still feel for all of them, instead of being tortured by the scenes of their suffering, I now try to be grateful that perhaps I'm helping after all.
I just to interrupt you real quick before you keep reading that last part, I just think it's weird that spirits being in the other realm being like, yo, dude, check this out, dude. Ain't this some bullshit? Just like picking some random girl to share their death like it's a YouTube reel or something. It'd be like, pretty fucked, huh?
I do have a really weird story to share about this, but in my last few years, I'm in my 50s. I've asked not to see these things anymore unless they relate to families or friends. Since then, I haven't had any other death dreams except for 3 members of my family. Each of those happened exactly 7 days prior to their passing, and even though none were in perfect health, none were expected to die anytime soon. That's a tough spot to be in because you want to tell the person in the hopes that something will change for them, but when you think about it, it's more likely that if they believe you, they'll inadvertently create a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I've stayed silent, even though it's very hard emotionally. My father went to the hospital for what should have been a routine procedure, and while in the waiting room, I drew part of my dream about him in a sketchbook. At least I was there for my mom. When the doctor came out to say he'd unexpectedly died on the table and they were unable to revive him. Later, I showed her the drawing and told her that in the dream, he had come to me as a spirit and I had told him, I see you finally got your wings, and he had smiled. As heart-wrenching as it was at the time, it was some comfort to both her and I later on, believing that he now has his wings and is well and happy. Mm-hmm. So I had this really weird experience with these dreams, and I didn't know if there was a supernatural element to them, but for 6 to 8 years, I was having nightmares all the time, very similar to this, of being in these situations. I wasn't me, but like I would have a dream that I was in China and was killed at a hotel mass shooting, like in China. Like in very certain, or I was in Eastern European and was stabbed in a train station and died. Like I would have very, very specific dreams. I had a dream where I was a child and with my mother and was robbed at gunpoint and shot and died. Like I've had so many dreams like that. I mean, and they would just happen all the time, and it would be the most vivid dreams. And they would kind of like really shake me up because it would feel so real while it was happening. And like because of these, and this is gonna say, I'm disclaimer, like I'm not saying any of this is true and real, I'm just sharing my experience, so don't like 1019 me or whatever, what is it, 55150 me or whatever. I feel like I know somewhat of what it's like to be shot because I've felt it so vividly in a dream. And this plagued me. And so I decided, it was recommended to me to go see a spiritual healer, like a shaman, to talk about it. I was telling her about all this because I was like, I don't want to have these nightmares, these super vivid nightmares that I'm in terrorist attacks, that I'm in this, that I'm in that. And the shaman said it was connected to ancestral lineage, that it was like messages of ancestors being carried through. And there were a few of these things where if I Googled some of the things that I dreamt about, I would get results. And I don't know if that's a coincidence or if it was like someone died a certain way in a train station in Eastern European, because it was like
pretty common to die in a train station in Eastern
yeah
Europe.
But it was like I was trying to find actual historical events that had happened to kind of link it, and like sometimes I found something that was similar, but it's really hard to say. But anyways, this person was talking about how these events were connected to ancestral memories, and so we did all this work to kind of release that and to basically say, I don't want to carry this with me anymore. I'm healing for you. I like received the message. I don't want to keep having these dreams. And so we did kind of all this stuff, and I haven't had dreams like that since. And that was years ago. Isn't that weird?
It is. And you know what I've noticed
Hmm.
in our compiled stories?
Hmm.
Mainly the ladies. Mainly the ladies. A lot
Some
of
of these were dudes.
I mean, but a lot. Most of these have been women, sisters, and daughters and stuff like that. I don't know which one was a dude, but it seemed like the majority of these have been ladies.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder.
Some of these have been guys on Reddit, and a lot of, I think maybe naturally, women are more connected with that intuitive part of their mind.
Well, I think this is two things. I think you guys are much more vulnerable, and like men's solutions to getting out of trouble is like just physical, and ladies' solutions have like don't get in the trouble. That's also why I think you guys have like a better level head. That's why we die so young, is we do stuff, and you guys. So maybe the psychic connection is you guys' muscles. You know what I mean? It's like avoid the threat
I
before it
mean,
even becomes.
I mean, I got both, you know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
Don't look at my pasty chicken thighs, chicken wings.
No one was until you brought it up. No one noticed it until you were like, you looked at the camera
Don't.
and said, you said, don't look at these, and then flexed them in front of the camera. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Also,
we're just superior, dude. That's
also,
what it is.
there's a thought in spiritual ideas that women are more connected to the spirit realm because your womb is a portal to the spirit realm because you bring another
bad news.
soul. You bring another soul through the gate. And like you are the gate, or at least the womb is a connection to the gate. So you're connected to that realm way more than we are.
Can you imagine the workplace sexual harassment? Where
What are you talking
you're
about?
like, I need to go to therapy. I need to figure out why I'm having these ancestral dreams. And you show up and a woman's like, you're gonna have to do some things you don't really want to do.
What?
But I can get you through the portal. You just gotta come after hours, alright?
I don't know why the
you
shaman would be
imagine?
trying to
Well, because you said the womb's a portal. I could just see, like, can you imagine some lady being like,
trying to get in your
I can take you
portal?
through the portal.
No.
No, saying that her womb is the portal.
Oh. You mean to me? I thought
Yes.
you were talking about to you. I was like, that's
No,
weird.
the workplace sexual harassment of like, oh my
I wasn't
gosh.
following. I wasn't following.
I don't. We can cut that.
No,
one.
we're gonna leave it in. Not everyone needs to be a home run. Sometimes
I'm
you.
saying it's an easy avenue to sexually harass. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. Anna's like, I'm using my portal to the other realm. This.
I didn't say I would do that. I just said somebody might. Mm-hmm. Nah.
All right.
I'm just saying you're gonna have to do some shit
Don't
you
be
don't
a
want to do.
shaman, is what I'm saying. You know, don't be a
Just saying,
shaman.
if you want to get through the portal, buddy. All right. What are premonitions? This is by Kioma. The soul dwells in eternity. Whoa. In eternity, we experience the past, present, and future as one eternal now. Mm-hmm. This means outside physicality, the soul inhabits eternal being. Without time, there can be no before and no after. There can be no cause and effect. There can be no change. This is why we incarnate, because physicality is space and time. Only in incarnation can we change and grow, can we experience a before and an after. In physicality, space and time are real, reality is consequence. Because this is true, the future cannot already be written. If the end is already known, then simply play acting a predetermined script becomes pointless. A predetermined future violates free will and any reason for living at all. And if the future is already predetermined, where was it predetermined? How was an entire universe's future pre-written? It makes zero sense, only replicating effort that is to no purpose in the first place. Over time, I've come to see spirituality as perception and understanding of the animating essence of things. Interesting. Events, too, have an animating essence. I've come to see precognition as spiritual perception of event inertias, current events and forces that can mature into significant events and outcomes when they come together. Looking at it this way, precognition becomes seeing a likely future event by spirituality, by spiritually sensing how the various event inertias echo into the future, leading to a likely future. How strong are the various event inertias leading up to it? They might be very strong or they might not. So, a person may receive visions of future events that seem very real, very strong, but then might or might not happen. It is all precognition, but often an event is interrupted for some reason, so it does not happen. But it also can happen. It just depends because the future is not written until it happens and becomes the past.
I strongly disagree with all that.
Really?
I don't see any world that the future isn't already written.
Really?
I believe in determinism to an extent.
I disagree.
Okay.
I agree with this because okay, what I've been saying to people, if I'm talking to a friend and they go, oh, I just have so much anxiety. I just want to know what's going to happen. Like I hate the unknown. And I say, you can't know what's going to happen because it hasn't been determined yet.
Yeah.
Because you haven't decided. What's going to happen is going to be based on the choices you make right now.
Yeah.
I know you and I have talked about this, and this is a whole nother ass podcast. All right.
Is
It's
it?
like, yes, it's a whole nother podcast if we talk about whether or not you're living in the bounds of what your destiny is, as opposed to you can effectively determine your destiny.
Well, two things. One, Newtonian physics doesn't really leave any room for an alternative. So it's just like we're if you could calculate all the matter and energies from the start of the Big Bang, you would be able to calculate the unfurling of the universe. That's just what Newtonian physics points to. Now, quantum mechanics could throw in something as like a variance degree, but I don't see how it would play out. It would like supersede what we see in the like macro physics. But my thing is, if only one outcome is possible, so like right now there's only one thing I could be saying right now, and I said it. That's the only thing I could have ever said, because it's what was said. Now you could rationalize the idea that I had an alternative. I could have thought of saying something else, but I didn't. And everything that I did was leading me to this the one possible outcome. So I think the fact that you can only have one moment, one event, one thing done at a time means that whatever is was always going to be. And the idea of there being an alternative is just an illusion that you play out in your mind to ultimately come to the conclusion of acting out the one thing that was always going to happen.
Okay, well, so that's your opinion.
That is my opinion.
But let me ask you though, if that's true, what do you think your purpose is here as a conscious being? Because if it's all just because the way that I interpret what you're saying is that like if it's predetermined, then that does mean that there's some orchestrated universal power, like a God, that's kind of determined exactly what's going to happen. And then is it like God wrote a play and is watching his actors act it out? Like, is that what your belief is? Because that's not what my belief about existence is.
Well, to quote the Oracle from the Matrix, she says, "You've already chosen. You're not here to choose. You're here to understand why you chose what you chose." So, like, the idea of life isn't so much the choosing and the doing of things, but relating to what that means, like, for you. It's that introspective journey of understanding what my experiences meant to me. But also, I think we choose. We just don't choose in the present moment. I think wherever we existed before the physical reality, we signed up to play out like how you play a video game. You know, if I go pick a video game, it plays out one way. You know, there's some, but the story is always the same. But I chose in the beginning to put that game in and run through that. And I think that's how reality works, is that I looked at my entire life before I got here and said, yep, and then got in. But once I'm here, I can't deviate really from the script. So I did play a hand in choosing my experiences. I had free will at the beginning when all this was mapped out. I think I probably played a role in mapping out the life experience I want. But once I'm in, there's only one.
Okay, but I disagree with that because I think so. Say you choose your life path or whatever it's from a higher sense before you actually get here.
Yep.
Before you animate,
Yes.
right? You might choose. It's like kind of the cards you're dealt. So you might say, "I'm going to be this person, this race, this demographic. This is what my family's going to be like. This is what my interests are going to be." Blah blah. So you kind of like build your character. And you get here. But then what you do with your character is effectively how you engage with your free will there. Because, and this might be where the lessons come in, is there's some people who might do with an abusive childhood what the next person would do differently with an abusive childhood.
Yeah.
And so I think those choices within the moment of free will, I like to believe that because it brings about a sense of agency. And an ability to essentially unchain yourself from your circumstances. And I think because there's something kind of hopeless from what you were saying to me of like, oh, we're just because that's what I think is what's the point in trying to evolve or change or do anything. If everything's predetermined and it's all laid before me, I'm just going to stay in bed all the time and order takeout and watch Netflix. Because if I have essentially...
Well, you don't get the choice to lay in bed and watch Netflix all day because it's all predetermined.
Then what's the point?
Predetermined an alternative.
Then what's the point, bro? Then there's no point. I should exit.
I think the point...
I should exit.
I think we're getting too deep into a philosophical conversation.
Yeah, we probably are. But hey, welcome to Rotisserie Chicken.
But I think...
You know, it's like, what's the point?
I think that we are vessels for the divine to explore the consciousness of God and that we exist in that consciousness. And the point is to just experience all that the universe is.
I agree with you on that 100%. But I think the best way for the universe to learn what it is by letting us run rampant. Okay? By setting us loose. And that's what I'm trying to do is be set fucking loose. Okay?
Which
get ready, world.
Is what caused the fall of Lucifer in the beginning stories, was his desire to be set fucking loose. Who are you? Who are you? Beelzebub. Beelzebub, come out. Come out, Beelzebub.
We might need to cut that. It's just getting weird. I'm not going to...
We should be weirder, dude. I think we should... It's rotisserie chicken.
Burger. Yes. I agree with this, though. So the reason I included I think this is my take. If you have a certain take about reality and what it is and your relation with this, comment on this episode. Leave us a comment. Tell us, are we crazy? Are we psycho? Do we need to get our door busted in by some freaking people with the little strappy vests? Like, you tell us what you think, because
dominatrixes?
Honestly, I think it would be so fun to do an episode where we have whatever listeners or friends or participants write in what their belief about it is and and do a whole episode where we go through
like a response episode.
Yeah, like that would be so freaking fun, dude.
So listen up, all 48 of our listeners. Are going to need at least a fourth of you to send in.
Why do you... Yeah. Maybe they had premonitions. We're going to ask that. I don't know.
Mimi.
I don't know. All right. So this one's called A Glitch in the Matrix. Last summer, I was driving on the freeway. I was in the car by myself, and it was a clear, sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. There was a semi about 50 feet ahead of me, and a red car a couple car lengths behind me. I looked down for a split second to adjust the volume on the stereo, and when I looked up, a thick fog had rolled in, and the semi in front of me was on its side, sliding towards me fast. I knew I was about to die with absolute certainty. I felt panic, but also this crushing devastation that I wasn't going to be there to see my daughter grow up. I have never felt anything like that before or since. Blind terror, overwhelming sadness, the knowledge that this was my end, and the grief because I just wasn't ready. Opened my mouth to gasp or scream or something, and I must have blinked in that moment because suddenly, the day was sunny again. The semi was upright, driving normally, still about 50 feet ahead of me. The red car was still a few car lengths behind me. I was shook. I had to pull over on the freeway to have a meltdown because seconds before, I'd been about to die. I just sat in my car for a few minutes in shock. I know what I experienced. I was 100% sober. I've never hallucinated. I'm a very sensible, skeptical person, but I cannot explain what happened that day. Premonition, did I die in an alternate universe? Has anyone ever experienced something like this?
I vote died in an alternate universe. So I think the previous person who we read was talking about how, like, you know, we exist in the eternal.
Eternal.
We talk about how we exist in the eternal, and
E-turtle.
but I think we exist in the internet turtle. We exist in the eternal. No, but I do think that this gives more stock. Is that I think time grows out in all directions, and the idea that it moves linearly is only our forced perspective, and that reality that the beginning, the present, and the end all exist. They create each other simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And when you have a premonition or see the future or something like that, you're really just kind of getting some bleed over or some like resonancy from that already existing future.
That's really interesting. So we're about to wrap up, but I do want to share a little bit about premonitions that I've been involved in. And these are highly personal stories. So the fact that I'm releasing these to the public says a lot. It means that I am determining my destiny through making this choice.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 15, my mom had a premonition about a certain date. So it was about a week before this date. She woke up and she heard a voice, kind of like an external voice, say January 3rd, 2007. She just heard it, and she has kind of been in touch with her spirituality, and so she thought this was a message that she was going to die that day. I remember a week. What?
Just keep going, and I'll tell you at the end.
Okay. That week, I remember her being like, I need to get my will made. I need to go to the doctor. And I'm like, are you okay? You're acting weird. Is there something going on that you need to tell me? And she was like, no, I just need to take care of this stuff. So I was like, okay. January 3rd rolled around, and I woke up that morning super sick. I was very, very sick to my stomach. I was throwing up. I was very ill. And ironically, that was the first day of high school back. And I kind of had a reputation for skipping school at that point. So I thought that my mom would not believe me and be like, you need to go to school. You're not sick. But as soon as I told her I was feeling really ill, she immediately called out of work and stayed home to take care of me, which was weird. And I ended up getting so violently sick that day and throwing up every 2 minutes and almost like losing consciousness. I had some severe stomach flu, like food poisoning, and I was got so dehydrated that my vision was like black, basically. It was like closing in. So we called the ambulance. I got taken to the emergency room and had severe stomach flu. And if she had not have stayed home with me, I probably wouldn't have had the strength to call an ambulance, because I was just like losing consciousness, and it could have been very bad. So she told me about the premonition that she had, that something was going to happen on that day that she needed to be prepared for. And when she told me, it was just like mind blowing that she could have saved my life that day. Mm-hmm. So that was another really weird thing. But what were you
I was going to say, it's very much your mom to have like a really strong, scary premonition that she's going to die on a very specific date, and then just like not tell anybody, or just be like, I'm just going to let myself die that day. And just not bring it up or prepare anybody in any way, shape, or form. It's very much your mom.
It is very much. I mean, my mom totally, if something crazy happened, she'd be like, yep, 30 months ago I knew that was going to happen. So crazy it actually did. So, and then I had a prophetic dream when I was in high school. I think I was like a freshman or a sophomore or something, and I'd never had really a boyfriend, like a serious relationship, where I'd never been in love before. I'd never felt romantic love. But about 6 months before my first real relationship where I felt romantic love, I had a premonition dream about this person. And like basically cuddling with this person. Trigger earmuffs. Cuddling with this person and feeling this profound sense of love towards this person. And I just had this, it was like their face was kind of blurry. I just remember details about their eye color, which was very distinct, and how their hair was. And in the dream, we were together, and his like mom came over, and it was just like, it was a regular day. The dream was just so benign. We went grocery shopping. We were together. But I'd felt this profound romantic love. And I hadn't really felt that before. And I remember I woke up the next morning and my friend was spending the night at my house, and I was like, I had a dream that I was in love, and like, we gotta find this guy. I literally was like, this guy exists out there somewhere, we gotta find him. And then, you know, it was just kind of like became a joke. And then 6 months passed, and I did start dating this person, and I didn't really put it together quite at first, but then when I fell in love with them, I remembered the dream, and I was like, their eye color's the same, their hair's the same, his mom looked exactly the same from in the dream. The weird thing about the dream, too, was that I predicted how it ended. Is that it was like this whole, like, day that we had, but then this thing ended, and it, in the dream, we broke up, and so I went through this heartbreak, but then also I just kept saying, I just have to get to Kentucky. I just have to get to Kentucky. Was like this thing at the end of the dream of like, it's, I don't know if he like went to Kentucky or something. And this was all one freaking night. And I was like, I just have to get to Kentucky. If I can get to Kentucky, I'll be okay. And so it was like this huge premonition about a year and a half of my life. I didn't know. So when I entered this relationship, it was the person from the dream. It was the same feeling, like same circumstances. And we had such a tumultuous relationship, and we broke up. And there was a lot of, it was a horrible time for me because it was just like multi-layered and
good.
And I wasn't okay for about 9 months afterwards.
Until the baby was born, and then you were like,
well, him and I were not on speaking terms at all. We were not on speaking terms. I'd really messed up. He hated my guts. And it was this sense that I wanted this relationship because I cared about this person. I just wanted there not to be this animosity, and I was like torn up about it. My brother and his girlfriend and I went to a concert in Lexington, Kentucky about 8 months later. I wasn't thinking anything of it. We got to Lexington, Kentucky, and while I was in Kentucky, I got this text message on my phone from him basically saying that it was like kind of an amends, but it was also like a, hey, let's put stuff behind us. I will always love and care about you as a person, like forever. And like, let's just, so there was resolution as soon as I got to Kentucky. And it was so weird because now it was like years before I dreamt about the whole process of this relationship from start to finish in like one night, which was really strange. Isn't that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe the premonition was more about avoiding that rather than you seeking it out. Like if it ended badly, maybe your dream was trying to warn you that it wasn't going to be a good relationship.
I think the dream was just that it was going to happen. That I was going to have to go through this thing, that I was going to fall in love and go through this and then have the heartbreak and then make it to Kentucky. And it was like a chapter of my life. It was like, this is going to be the next chapter of your life. It's going to start here and it's going to end here. And as soon as you get to Kentucky, that's when the next chapter starts. It was really strange. Yeah.
On a side note, Anna puts the Anna in animosity.
That's not good. I don't want to do that. Yeah. Have we blown your mind up?
Or did you...
Have we blown it up?
Or did you know we were going to say everything we just said?
Did you have a dream about this rotisserie chicken episode?
This has been a long one. We got to get out of here.
This has been a really long one. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for not calling the police on us.
Also, go to our YouTube and look how nice Anna's hair looks today. We're both actually having phenomenal hair days.
Phenomenal hair day. All right. Write us about your premonitions.
No, we
your premonitions.